Welcome to the Anchor Deep podcast. We're so happy to have you here. And of course, we're here with Pastor Zach Rowe, a worship pastor here at Anchor, and Pastor Brad Cruz. And a special guest this week, is our friend Marjorie Taylor Greene. And so praise God for her. And most of you, some of you may not know who she is. I'd be surprised if you didn't know who she is. She's one of the most vocal, strong, bold, tense fighters for convictions and beliefs that I've ever seen. I've never seen someone with so much grit and perseverance and tenacity. Bulldog fighter, and we respect that a lot. And so welcome, Marjorie.
Thank you.
And I'd love to hear, like, how are you? You guys are, Brian's actually here too. We kept him off the camera because, you know, he's too pretty for all of us. But anyway, they're here in town. And what brought you guys to town this weekend? I know y'all are here for some other things. There's family stuff.
Family,
Yeah.
yes, which is the absolute best thing.
Yeah.
So we're excited to be here, and then get to stop in and talk with you guys a little bit, and then we'll be off visiting family some more.
Yeah, well, always love it when you're here, and love time with you and Brian and worship. I think the last time we were leading worship, like she was there in worship. There's one song set, and like I think you were leading or someone else was leading, but she was like, "Oh, that's Chris Tomlin. Oh, that's this." And I said, "Well, this song Zach wrote. That's Zach wrote." And she goes, "Oh, this is such a great day." And I loved seeing you worship. I think most people don't know you as a worshiper of God. But she was like spouting off the writers on the songs that we were singing that day. And what was your faith background growing up?
I grew up Catholic.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I grew up in the Catholic Church. Actually, was confirmed in the Catholic Church in 8th grade.
Mhm.
Got married in the Catholic Church, and had children still as a practicing Catholic. And what led me to stop going to Mass in the Catholic Church was the scandal, the child abuse scandal.
Hmm.
And I was very upset at the way the church handled the pedophilia with the priest.
Mhm.
And I felt like if I can't go to a church and not know if my priest is involved in that or
Mhm.
has a history in it, I can't trust this priest around my children.
Mm.
And so it was a very informed, deep decision I made
Mhm.
as a Christian. I'm not against Catholics or the
Mhm.
Catholic Church.
Mhm.
I just needed to be somewhere and have my children somewhere where I felt they were safe.
That's so important. This weekend, Zach, we try to, like, the way we do the podcast is we call it Anchor Deep. And so we go like into the weekend experience. And this weekend was such a powerful experience. The word that we shared this weekend was from First Chronicles 21. And David went and he brought the most costly worship in human history, where he's like, okay, I'm not just going to build an altar. David went to the threshing floor of Arana, which is now the temple site. It's the site where the temple is in Jerusalem, and paid $1.1 million for this piece of ground, this temple site. And so we just kind of unpacked the thrill of God's will, the thrill of actually hearing his voice, knowing you're in alignment with his voice. I remember one moment in the service where Pastor Zach, in one of the services, you had like a prophetic word for several people, you know, in the congregation, and prayer over them. And then in the third service, this is the first time we ever did this, but Zach, I loved that because I saw and I felt and I heard what happened. But tell about like how, like, you see in the Bible, shout to the Lord. You know, come on. Hillsong even wrote "Shout to the Lord." I mean, there's songs on this, there's commands to it, but like there's this war cry, and we know like the shout of Jericho where Joshua's marching around the walls, and that is a shout there, and that shout's amazing. But there was a moment in the service where you just felt like, I don't know, Marjorie, I don't know if you ever walked the halls of Congress and felt like just letting out a roar.
We would have heard about
Many
it.
times, actually.
But there was like this thing, like there's just so much injustice, like all the injustice that's happening, and that's what kind of has led you to this moment and where you are even right now. Is when you take, it's like Popeye, like I've just taken all I can stands, you know, and just this rah. And so we were at that point in the worship service yesterday where the grit of the Lord was on all of us, and Zach felt that. And so set that up, and then I want to get in some practical questions.
Well, yeah, it was a moment in the third service on Sunday, so the fourth service of the weekend, the last one.
Mhm.
And you know, I was leading the third song, and so I had the opportunity for the first two songs to just kind of, you know, look out. I'm worshiping, obviously. I don't want anyone to think I'm not worshiping during the service. I'm worshiping, but I'm also listening. I'm also sensing what the Lord wants to do. And I had a sense, I wouldn't say it in the moment, I felt that it was specific to like an injustice, or I just felt like an unsettledness.
Mhm.
And I felt like some things that are just pent up, and almost like people were coming in and there was this mask that everyone's wearing of just like, I'm just going to be a little prim and proper, and I'm going to do my
Mhm.
top button today because I'm at church.
Mhm.
But I just felt the invitation from the Lord to say, he will meet you in that place of raw emotion. If you
Yeah.
if you just go there,
Yeah.
he's not intimidated by that. We see it
Mhm.
all through David and the Psalms. He meets the Lord. He is not hiding any part of his heart from the Lord. In fact, that's why he's the man after God's own heart, is because
Yeah.
he bears his soul to the Lord, and he has that type of relationship where he knows that the Lord will meet him there.
Yeah.
And so I just felt a prompting to just give people an opportunity to just release a shout.
I
And
love how you set the covering, because he said, "Okay, listen, some of you don't like the volume in here." We get more complaints from people like, "Do we need why do we need earplugs in church?" And so you're like, "Hey, the Catholic priest ticked me off." But these people are like, "The volume ticks me off." And so nobody's ever left the Catholic Church for complaining with volume issues, I don't think. But the reality of how you set that up, you're like, "We're going to crank up the volume to cover this," but like there's this roar coming. And what happened when I mean, literally, I was standing in front of Pastor Brad, but you could hear the distinct, like, wow, I've never yelled in church. I've never roared, but it was like a release in a powerful way
And
that
actually, the release from the congregation covered the music.
it was
I
so
don't know if
loud you
you
couldn't
know
even hear
this,
the
but yeah,
band. It
you
was
couldn't even hear the
so
band,
it
and
was so
you set
awesome.
it up so well because it didn't get weird. When you first started, quite frankly, I was like, oh, uh-oh.
oh
And
yeah,
really in
But
Isaiah
trust me,
you
6,
set
me
it
too. I
up
was like,
perfectly.
this might be really embarrassing. It
and
might be,
I
come on, everyone shout. And everyone's like, no.
and I like heaven's so dang loud. I mean, Isaiah 6 says that when Isaiah heard the throne room where God was, he said the sound of the angels worshiping was so loud that the doorpost in the temple shook. I mean, that's
Yeah.
very loud,
Yeah.
the volume there. And so there's times where the Lord brings us to that roar. And I thought about that with you, Marjorie. I thought of like I love that part, because I thought like there was something strong. It had to be something strong happening in your life to get a woman this strong and this full of grit and tenacity to do what you've done. You don't just limp your way into political leadership. How did you get involved? What was the moment like where you knew I've got to go do something?
Well, just to give a little background about my life, I grew up in a family construction business. So the roof over my head, the food on our table, the clothes that we wore, we earned ourselves
Mhm.
doing construction work,
Mhm.
having to do a good job for our customer,
Mhm.
and deliver exactly what we promised.
Mhm.
And that's how we got repeat customers. That's how we survived.
Mhm.
And our industry was very much basically at the will of how the government was performing.
Mhm.
If we were having a good economy, our business was doing well.
Mhm.
If we were having a bad economy, we were going without a paycheck ourselves so that we
Mhm.
could still pay our employees.
Mhm.
We were doing everything we could to limp by.
Mm.
So that was, just to give you a frame of reference, my worldview of the government's decisions, good and bad, very much affect our
Yeah.
ability to live.
Mhm.
And being a mother, raising three children,
Mhm.
of course, the ability to provide for my children
Mhm.
and raise them, for them to have a good life in America, that the government's decisions affected that.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And so by the time Obama was in his second term, I had become a very frustrated American,
Mm.
very angry American, because we had been through very difficult recessions,
Mhm.
I was tired of the government debt. I was tired of all the foreign wars. A lot of it just had angered me. And then President Trump ran for president, and a lot of his more America First, MAGA type policies were very appealing to me.
Mhm.
And so that was the first time I really started becoming involved in
Mm.
politics. Well, fast forward to 2020, I had gotten so passionate about politics and about saving America and the future of this country for my own children, I decided to run for Congress.
Mm.
Now, let me tell you the funny part about that. I was so naive. I'm
Mhm.
talking about very
Yeah,
naive.
because you didn't start like as
You're
a
like,
local
I'm gonna
commissioner.
go.
You went straight to the U.S. House of Representatives.
I had not even been to a local Republican County
Yeah.
Party meeting, did not even know these people until I walked into a GOP meeting and said, "Hi, my name's Marjorie Taylor Greene and I'm running for Congress." I mean, that's really naive. Like there was not a phone book I could look up. I need a campaign consultant. Let me look in this section or some shopping center where I'm like, "Oh, here's the media people, here's the fundraising people, here are the people I need to hire." I didn't know anyone. But I beat 8 men, very accomplished men who I respect, by the way, in a primary. And then I had to go into a runoff that was extremely difficult. He was a neurosurgeon and owned 3 businesses. And I beat that guy by I double digit.
Yeah,
Beat
let's
him.
go.
And there I went into Congress and filled just I'm talking about filled to I'm a little person, I'm 5'2.5", and every single cell in my body was completely filled with passion for I'm gonna save America. I'm getting in here and I'm
And
tired
what
of
year
this.
was that? That was
That was in I my first day in Congress was January 3rd, 2021.
when did you actually start? I remember when you started, and we've been friends for a while. But when did you start like more engaging faith more as an adult in your own
Oh,
personal?
early on.
Of
Early on. I've always
course, I
had
always believed in God and Jesus, but
tremendous faith
yeah,
in God and Jesus and always felt his presence. It
Mhm.
wasn't I never had an aha moment, but I had a deepening of my relationship. And that only happened through reading the Bible. It did not happen
yeah,
going to a certain church or a certain church service. It happened by literally opening
right.
and starting with Matthew and just reading through the New
And I
Testament.
wanted to emphasize that because there's a lot of people that use religion, like they use religion for their political gain. And Marjorie, I tell people that Marjorie's going to be on the south side of heaven because she will cuss, she will punch you in the mouth and cuss you, especially
Me
if
and
you're
Paul,
violating
I'll be
people.
hanging out down there with Paul,
You know, and so people are like,
formerly known as
yeah.
Saul.
And so I love that grit. Like I get you, and I've been in your home. I've met some of your family, and I've had multiple meals with you, and I love your heart. And but there's a grit. There's a grit to you that is very admirable. And so, like when you first moved into political leadership and influence, what was different than what you expected?
Can I just say real fast? When you described what got you into politics, I think that's how it's supposed to be. Because this whole idea of professional politicians irks me. And
Yeah.
I think the government in its original founding was for the people, by the people, for the people. And the fact that you went in that way naive, I freaking love. I love the fact that you went in to make a difference, not to make a living. And I think that's what, a lot of the tension and things that we feel as, ordinary citizens is that, professional politician role, which, is beholden to all kinds of things. You went in as a business person, fed up and wanting to make a difference. And I love that. And to hear the passion, you were like every cell, every whatever in me was excited. I think
Yeah.
that's the way it's supposed to be.
And really, we won't get there right now, but as part of like the transition that you made later was because you also didn't need the job, need the role, all those things, and God, you knew God had you. So, but what was the difference in the real experience? Because good Lord, man, you stepped in at a crazy time.
Oh my
Well,
gosh.
COVID and just everything.
You stepped in like
It
right around
was
COVID,
the
didn't
world
you?
was upside down.
Yeah.
So I started running for Congress before COVID. That was when I had launched my campaign. During my campaign through 2020, we saw the world change. COVID came, people are dying. We see lockdowns happen, masking requirements, vaccine requirements. I mean, schools shut down. So many small businesses were put out of business and we never saw them come back. I mean, we saw suicide rates go to all-time highs. We saw children's suicide rates go to all-time highs. Just the entire world flipped upside down.
Yeah.
And I'm running for
And then
Congress.
everything accelerated from there on
Yes.
the gender confusion, all
Yes.
of the,
It's like an
and
open
it's
door.
like, and
It was,
like once
yes.
the more aggressive the internet got, the more we saw how corrupt things are in real time. So well, as you got in leadership, like what were the things that were the most surprising to you as you won
Mhm.
and then got in the trenches of just some of the one of the darkest leadership times of our country?
It was I was uncomfortable the entire time because I felt the world was completely out of control and there was no foundation. It felt like our entire foundation crumbled, right?
Mhm.
And but at the same time, I was put into power.
Mhm.
And power is not something I'd ever sought or wanted, but I was put into power. And for me, it was a very uncomfortable feeling. It was a great responsibility.
Mhm.
And so that was very much something I was aware of the entire time. I had a voting card.
Mhm.
All members of Congress, we have a voting card.
Mhm.
To me, that voting card was so serious to me. It was, this is my action that I know I will take before Christ one day.
Mhm.
This is a conversation I will have with him about what was in these bills, the consequences of these votes, how it affected people in our country, how it affected people outside of our country, how it affected the unborn, all types of things. So that was a great responsibility I knew I had. But I also went into Congress under a leadership that I vehemently disagreed with.
Mhm.
Joe Biden became president.
Mhm.
Nancy Pelosi was the Speaker of the House. She was in charge of the House of Representatives, where I was a member.
Mhm.
Chuck Schumer was the leader in the Senate. All the bills that I had to vote on,
Mhm.
every single one of them were Democrat bills.
Mhm.
I remember, I'll never ever forget this my entire life. Nancy Pelosi brought a bill to the floor that would have made abortion legal
Mhm.
federally on the federal level. Didn't matter what state laws are, on the federal level, legal to kill a baby, an unborn baby, up until the day of birth, abortion to the day of birth. That
Mhm.
was a Democrat bill. I voted no to it, and then I watched it pass.
Mm.
I watched it pass the House of Representatives, and I sat there and I cried.
Mhm.
That wasn't on camera. I
Mhm.
sat in my chair and I cried. And in that room, and I remember it like it's happening right now, it was the most evil spirit in that room.
Mhm.
And the irony
Mhm.
of feeling that evil, but on the wall in front of me, as I was facing the desk, facing the speaker's chair, and facing the marble wall, it said, "In God we trust."
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I had to realize and recognize that no matter what I was feeling at the moment and what I had just witnessed happen in our nation's history,
Mhm.
that in the House of Representatives, the House voted to kill babies up until the day of birth, that God is in
Mhm.
control. And
Mhm.
I had to take hold of that even though nothing felt that way.
Mhm.
And so that's just one tiny example
Mhm.
of the body I was serving
Mhm.
in the first 2 years, and there were many more bills. As a matter of fact, she sent that bill, the House passed it, she sent it over to the Senate
Mhm.
where it did not pass. It
Mhm.
failed. Then Nancy Pelosi, months later, determined, she brought that bill back to the floor and we had to vote on it again. I had to vote no a second time.
Mhm.
Proudly voted no a second time, but I had to watch it pass a second time.
Mm.
Mhm.
And you talk about you spoke about
Mhm.
in your service shouting.
Mhm.
That day, the second time, the Democrats held a celebration out on the steps of the Capitol, and they had a press conference out there where all the Democrat women, and they had led up to it. They had been sharing their abortion stories,
Mhm.
doing YouTube videos and interviews.
Mhm.
But that day they celebrated and had a podium set up, and it was all about celebrating women.
Mhm.
And I went out on those Capitol steps,
Mhm.
and I could not contain myself,
Mhm.
and I just totally chewed them all out. I mean, cussed
I don't
them.
believe you.
I mean, I'd had it. It was the most evil thing I'd ever seen.
Mhm.
It just came out of me.
Mhm.
But it was anger, not at these people for who they are, not
Mhm.
because of their
You just
policies
saw
or
the evil.
no, it was just outright evil.
Yeah, the
Mhm.
darkness and
Yeah.
I love even when you said when you were sharing that your early faith, kind of your journey, the principles and the values that you allow to lead you in life,
Mhm.
I think are significant. You're
Thank
like,
you.
I didn't feel safe. I had
Mhm.
this, and so therefore I left. I
Mhm.
think so many people struggle with knowing what, and people look to the Constitution for faith. Like
Mhm.
faith comes from hearing and hearing by the word of God.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so this is foundational to everything.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I'm a strong, constitutionalist and all, but the Constitution doesn't stand up
Mhm.
that
That's right.
against this at all.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And it's so your principled, value-driven actions, I commend.
Thank you.
There was I think the first moment I walked in your kitchen in your home, it was the first time I felt the weight of the multiple death threats that you faced. I think people joke about that, but I literally there were people at your house that day training you and setting up cameras because of the people violating your property, and literally people had broken in across your fence, and like people had found you. There's like I think it was hundreds of death threats. What was the first one? Why do you think people were threatening you physically? Because that was a big deal for several years, and like, and you were not protected in a
No,
lot of ways.
no,
Yeah, and
no.
yeah. So what? How did that start? And why do you think you, out of all people, had either the top or the second amount of death threats in America?
I think um I think it was because people that disagreed with me and hated me and wanted me dead recognized that I meant it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That when I said something, it wasn't for politics. It wasn't campaign rhetoric.
Mhm.
I sincerely mean it.
So they wanted to stop your voice.
100%. And the death threats really amplified to a very dangerous point when I introduced my bill, Protect Children's Innocence Act. And my bill
Mhm.
was very simple. It makes it a felony to perform gender affirming care on a child,
Mhm.
to trans them, to give them puberty blockers, hormones, to perform mastectomies on teenage girls, castrate teenage boys or middle school age boys, to do any or even take them into therapy
Mhm.
and talk them into being trans,
Mhm.
telling them they can change
Mhm.
their gender. So my bill, Protect Children's Innocence Act, which I introduced in 2022, made it
Mhm.
a felony, and that's when it got really nasty.
Isn't that crazy?
Mhm.
That's when I had over 2 dozen swatting calls on my house,
Mhm.
having police show up at your door at 2 a.m. and you're like, what is going on?
Mhm.
Death threats that were so heinous and descriptive
Mhm.
in nature, but it was about protecting the most innocent. It's
Mhm.
always about protecting the most innocent
Mhm.
is when you get the most evil outcome.
Yeah. I think, look, what's really fascinating to me is that people liken this uh, gender identity and this right to life and women's choice, my body, all those things are the language around that. They like to Civil Rights Act.
Hmm.
And it's the opposite, actually. It's the fight. It's because you're made. You can't control your color, and so we're fighting for people to have the dignity of like, don't discriminate me against me because of my color. And then the evil is we want to take away the power of God and His
Hmm.
Word for defining anything, and
Mhm.
we want self to define.
Yeah.
And so the reason people are trying to kill you is because you're threatening their right, they think, to define things.
And I had the power to do it, being
Yeah.
a member of Congress.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you were the most vocal, person there, but I remember, being at a dinner with you and Brian, and the death threats had become severe, and we went to a rally, and I've never seen, like, I mean, Trump stinking loved you.
Hmm.
He loved you, and you were the most like, in that arena with thousands of people, when you got on the platform, the place went crazy. I mean, they went crazy.
They were great.
And the favor that you had there was because of how hard you fought for President Trump when nobody else did. Why did you do that? Why were you the only one fighting for him? And really, you and maybe one or two others, but you and Brian Stinkin went through hell for 4 years
We
fighting
did.
for him. And
We
why did
did.
you do that?
Well, it was,
Because he's very controversial even then.
yes, he
But
was.
you fought. Why'd you fight like that?
It was just belief in the movement,
Mm,
belief in saving our country
mhm,
from everything I saw wrong was what the Democrat Party was doing. Wide open borders
mhm,
where millions of people came across our border and people I knew died.
mhm.
People like Laken
Yeah.
Riley's daughter. I mean, Laken Riley, I know her
Mhm.
mother, Allison. Laken Riley was murdered. Fentanyl deaths or murders in my district went up by 280%.
Wow.
I mean, the amount of crime and just ridiculous things, taxpayers having to pay for people that aren't
Mhm,
even American citizens. All of it was outrageous. COVID lockdowns to me were completely tyrannical.
mhm,
I am very much and it was then and still am today against the vaccines
mhm,
and them being mandated on people,
mhm,
masking of children, all of it. It was
mhm,
all so wrong.
mhm,
And so after the election, I believed there was election fraud. I still believe it today. I'll
mhm,
say it over and over again. I believe
mhm,
the 2020 election was stolen and was filled with fraud. I saw too much evidence.
mhm,
After that election, it was when I got elected. I actually was the main organizer of the congressional objection
mhm.
on January 6th. That was my third day in office.
Wow.
Hmm.
But I had organized it starting in November.
Hmm.
I'd called Jim Jordan, I called Matt Gaetz, I called Mark Meadows, I called President Trump, I called everyone. And I was like, this is what we can do. We can object
Mhm,
to Joe Biden's electoral college votes
mhm,
because they're fraudulent. And so I dove straight into that. And I fought because this what was happening to our country
mhm,
is not the home I wanted for my
mhm.
children. And it's my mother's heart.
Yeah.
I want my children to have a good home.
Mhm,
I want the entire country to have a good
mhm.
home. We're a family.
Yeah.
That's how I see our country.
Mhm,
That's how I see our people. And the Democrats were ripping it to shreds
mhm,
and we're holding up like identity politics is insane. They were holding up trans and all these issues at
mhm.
the peak,
Yeah.
almost on a worship level. And to me, that was worth fighting against. All of it was worth fighting against. So I dove in and I supported Donald Trump probably more than most people in Washington.
Mhm. No, not probably.
Yeah.
Like, and you literally, you probably almost died for him in a lot of ways, but it wasn't necessarily from him. It was because of what the value of what you saw being disintegrated, and,
Hmm.
Pastor Brad, you
Well,
have something?
yeah, I was going to say, I think it goes back to that what politics was meant to be, not a professional or career, where so many people were, covering their six or not doing things from the overall good of the country
Hmm.
or from a value standpoint. They were looking at it from a career standpoint.
Hmm.
How if I support this or say this, is it going to affect my political career?
Yeah,
Mhm.
And
that's
you're coming into it like, I'm not a career politician. I'm doing this out of value driven purpose, cause, serving civic duty.
right.
And so
Mhm.
therefore, you didn't have I would, describe this like the bridle in your mouth so
Mhm.
much as some other people. And so, you spoke up, I think, in the
Mhm.
way that and gave voice to how a lot of America feels.
Mhm.
Mhm.
You had the platform to say it. And the other people that have the platform to say it aren't worried about how America feels. They're worried about how their donors or whatever the
Yeah.
case may be, not to get off too much. But I appreciate that about you, is I kind of think of you just like grassroots.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're in it for, purpose driven, value driven
Mhm.
things. And you may not be right 100% of the time,
Oh yeah.
but
Yes, she
Just
is.
yeah, you probably are, more right than wrong, or like Pastor Jeff says,
Often wrong, but seldom in
yeah,
doubt.
often wrong, seldom in
I'm
doubt.
often wrong, but seldom in doubt. That's
But just
true.
the mere idea of, I think, how, where politics has gone in, with speech and debate things, and the opportunity for the citizens to be represented,
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
to be, is so out of whack. But
I can tell you that's true.
mhm,
Citizens are not represented in Washington. You're spoken to during campaigns, which
Mhm.
is happening right now,
mhm,
Mhm.
and in election season, every election cycle. You are spoken to. They're going to throw red meat at you. They're going to say all the stuff that try to get you fired up to turn out the vote and vote for them. But as soon as it's finished and they all go back to Washington, D.C., the voices they listening to are the lobbyists, the big donors, the big donor industries, and really the central powers and the power of focus in Washington, D.C.
Explain to people what the lobbyists are.
Okay. So every industry, no, not lobbyists are not necessarily evil in nature. They're
Right.
not all bad.
Right.
So say, for example, dentists, they
Mhm.
have lobbyists in
Mhm.
Washington. Car dealerships have lobbyists in Washington. Pretty much any industry have lobbyists. And a lobbyist is kind of like a salesperson.
Mhm.
It's a person that you hire that is going to go in and meet with members of Congress. They
Mhm.
make appointments with us. They hold events and invite us to come, and they come to talk to us about the industries they represent. That's what they're paid to do. And they come in and they say, look, say, for example, military industrial complex, they have one of the most powerful lobbies. They're going to come in when we are putting together the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act,
Mhm.
which is the funding for the military, which is extremely important.
Mhm.
We have got to have a well-funded military. That's for the defense of our
Mhm.
nation. I mean,
Right.
who can argue with that? But the defense lobbyists will come in and they're going to come in and they're fighting for maybe specific companies to
Certain contracts.
certain contractors. Yes, we've got to make sure that these contracts get funded because it'll affect the funding to build our fighter jets, or this is going to fund. We've got this company's in your district, Marjorie. They make key components on the Tomahawk missiles. We got to make sure this contract gets funded.
Mhm.
And that's what a lobbyist does.
Mhm.
Now, here's what's not in Washington, D.C. You guys,
Mhm.
the American people, are never in our offices coming and saying,
Anything.
hey, listen up. You guys are voting on this bill coming up.
Mhm.
Y'all have put all of us in nearly $40 trillion in debt.
Mhm.
My children are in debt. My grandchildren are in debt. My great-grandchildren are in debt. My great-great-grandchildren are in debt. My great-great-great-grandchildren are in debt, and on and on and on. So while you're talking about voting on this bill,
Mhm.
we need you to consider, we, the taxpayers, need you to consider how much money you're spending in this bill.
Mhm.
That never happens.
Mhm.
Never once did I ever have a group of Americans, just regular Americans, come in my office.
Mhm.
It is a nonstop flow of lobbyists.
Mm.
And then the
Gotta
lobbyists,
keep the money flowing.
yes.
Keep it flowing.
Then they also bring in the CEOs of the companies
Mhm.
and they bring in the people that they're representing to explain to you. And this is always this is the one that gets a lot of my colleagues. Listen, we got to have your vote on this bill because you have, say, approximately 35,000 jobs in your district. Don't forget, those are voters.
Mhm.
Jobs in your district that
Mhm.
depend on this contract right here. And they're implying if you don't vote for it, these
Right.
people are not going to vote for you.
So
That's the implication.
what do you remember being one of the top 5 most, like, thrilling moments in the last probably 5 to 6 years? What were
Hmm.
and I'm not trying to get you to say something in favor of anybody. I just wanna hear from you, like, what was the most, like, some of the most thrilling moments, because I know it was a massive deal when, in this last victory. I know that was a big deal.
Mhm.
That was a big win.
Yeah.
And other wins. There were a lot of other big wins, and you made a big difference in a lot of ways. What were 1 or 2 of the highlights of what God used me there? I made a difference.
Um, well, I brought up Protect Children's Innocence Act.
Mhm.
This is number 1 to me.
Mhm.
My last vote in Congress, on my
You
last
won.
day in Congress, I passed my bill,
Yeah,
Protect
I
Children's
know.
Innocence Act.
Yeah. I
It
got the
passed.
text from Brian. It was so amazing, and it was such a fight thing. We all prayed for it. It was a big deal.
It was a big deal, but let me tell you what a big deal it was. This bill, by man's doing, should not have passed.
Mhm.
God made this bill pass.
Mhm.
I know it in my soul. I know
Mhm.
this. And I can tell you how. Number 1, I had to fight with my leadership the entire year of 2025 to even get that bill to the floor for a
Mhm.
vote.
I know.
They didn't want to bring it. They did not want to bring it because they kept telling me, Marjorie, it won't pass.
Mhm.
And there's this is one of the dumbest things I hate about the House. They don't want to fail. They never want to build a fail.
Mhm.
They don't want failure. And my argument is if it fails, guess what? People are going to get mad and then it's more likely to pass the next time, or keep
Yeah, then
bringing
you can
it.
fix it and then make it better
Yes,
and refine.
keep bringing it and
Yeah.
get the public pressure behind it. Because if the public knows
Mhm.
that members of Congress are voting no to something they want, they get riled up and they say, pass
So
it.
during that whole time, I'd get questions, all the time about you. And people would come and say, "What's happening with Marjorie Taylor Greene?" I said, "I can tell you one thing. I know what's happening with her, and she will not violate her conscience for any reason. She won't violate her conscience. And she's being pressured to let off and violate her conscience for some political reason. She won't do it. And so she's getting hammered because she won't fall in line and do what she's told when she wants to fight for what's right."
Yeah. I had
And
two things going at the same time.
Mhm,
I was trying to get my bill. Well, it's not my bill. It's
mhm,
for kids.
right.
Kids, these
Mm,
innocent kids. I was trying to get that bill passed. And then at the same time, I was fighting the president on the Epstein files.
mhm,
Epstein files, I, s- I still, in my mind, is still blown.
mhm,
This was something we talked about for years.
mhm.
Release the Epstein files.
Which makes
Jeffrey
everybody think
Epstein,
there's something in there
yeah.
nobody wants anybody to see on
Jeffrey
both sides
Epstein,
in all countries.
convicted pedophile,
Yeah.
well known, most famous pedophile rapist in history.
Is he really dead, Marjorie?
I don't think he killed himself.
Yeah.
I'll say that. I'm pretty certain he didn't kill himself.
Hmm.
But so we're fighting to get the release the Epstein files, which should have never been a fight.
Mhm,
And at the same time, I'm fighting to get my bill passed.
mhm.
So let me tell you, that was
That wasn't winning you a lot of favor with leadership.
On either
So-
side.
I had everybody mad at me.
Yeah.
I had the speaker mad at me. I had the president mad at me. I had the majority leader mad at me. I had
Mhm,
everybody mad at me.
mhm.
Everyone was mad at me. And when they're mad at you, they aren't going to reward you by bringing one of your bills to the floor.
Right.
They're
So-
not. That's how Washington works. They punish you.
So what was that like?
Well,
I mean, I remember,
let me just
but
say
I'm
this:
just,
that was my 5th year in Congress, so my nerve endings were burnt.
I used to
So,
say this like,
I went to the point where I don't care.
Yeah, I know. So like this is what I've used like in leadership a lot because in the language of church and church leadership and religious leaders and spiritual people over spiritualize things sometimes, but I'm not over spiritualizing this statement. There's a time where God calls you to something. And sometimes that's a different time than when God releases you from something you're already in.
Mhm.
And so usually people say, well, how do I know if I'm released? And I'll ask them a question like this. I'll say, especially to a mom, I'll say, do you remember your first pregnancy? And she'll say, yes. And I'll say, do you remember how you found out you were pregnant? And she'll say, yes. And I said, did you know you were pregnant before you took a test or missed a cycle or anything like that? And she'll say, yeah. And I'll say, how? She'll describe to me a moment when she started to get nauseated by things she used to enjoy.
Mhm.
And so, like, I know from being a personal friend of yours that you started getting nauseated a long time before you
Mhm.
knew what God was calling you to do or whatever. There was a release happening. But at that time, I remember standing in the arena in Georgia, in Atlanta, and thinking, like, if she ran for governor, she'd win. I remember thinking that. I met the lieutenant governor, I met some of the other
Oh, yeah.
leaders, and I saw the crowd respond to every one of them, and I saw them respond to you.
Mm.
And the favor of God was on you in a powerful way in that whole state
Mhm.
and leadership. And I believe that God's not done with you. I believe there's more, that you're a fighter and you're not supposed to fight, construction contracts in private. You're a fighter and you're not supposed to just fight over apple pie or strawberry pie or whatever kind of pie at dinner. There's a fighter in you that the world needs. And I believe God's he's calling you into another assignment. But what was it like whenever you knew that you were being released from that leadership role? It hurt. I know it did. And so what was that
Yeah.
like?
Very interesting. So I was having this dual fight.
Mhm.
Back to this dual fight. I'm fighting to get my bill passed, which, by the way, President Trump had signed an executive order,
Mhm.
which was verbatim what my bill
I know.
said.
Yeah.
So my bill,
And said on camera, I'm going to get this
and
done.
we campaigned on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of us did.
Yeah.
So that was so frustrating. I
Mhm.
can't even describe the anger and frustration I had of why are they fighting me on this bill?
Mhm.
Why are we just passing it? It's just the most easiest, simple,
Yeah.
logical,
You have
good
the House
versus
and the
evil,
Senate
And it
the
ended up
presidency.
passing.
We're all in
Which is
charge.
like a big old huge high five to you.
but not with Republicans.
Yeah.
Guess what? So let me go back to the back and forth. And at the same time, I'm fighting because I signed my name on a discharge petition to release the Epstein files. Let me explain what a discharge petition is. In the House of Representatives, the only bills that you vote on are bills that the Speaker approves.
Mhm.
The Speaker has to approve and says, we're bringing this bill to the floor for a vote. That's the only way a bill gets voted on
Hmm.
easily.
Mhm.
The second way to get a bill to the floor for a vote is to put the bill in what's called a discharge petition. And the discharge petition requires 218 signatures from members of Congress, in Democrat or Republican, 218 signatures. Once it gets to 218, it discharges the bill. Then Congress votes on it. The speaker can't stop it. That's
Is
how
that discharged from the committee, essentially, or what
it
is
did.
it?
It's discharged to the floor for a vote. Yeah. So the speaker can't stop it. That's the rules of the House. So we had been fighting Mike Johnson. We'd been fighting the president. We've got to release the Epstein files. And nope, they didn't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So we partnered with Democrats, which was a big no-no,
Mm-hmm.
to launch a discharge petition and get 218 signatures to release the Epstein files. I know this is unthinkable that we had to do that, but that's what we had to do. So there's only 4 Republicans on that discharge petition.
Wow.
Thomas Massey, who I'm sure you've heard the president talk about a lot, Nancy Mace, Lauren Boebert, and myself.
Mm-hmm.
So 4 Republicans, and we were in hot water. I'm
Mhm.
talking about we were getting phone calls from the White House. We were constantly talked to by the speaker.
Mhm.
We were pressured by the president himself multiple times in multiple ways to take our names off the discharge petition. We refused.
Mhm.
All 4 of us refused. So that was happening at the same time I am fighting leadership to bring let me tell you how I was fighting them. I was refusing to vote for key Republican bills. No, I'm not voting for this unless you promise me to bring Protect Children's Innocence Act to the floor. I had to do that on multiple occasions on bills I should have never had to do that for.
Mhm.
But they couldn't pass the bill without my vote, so I had power.
Mhm.
So you see, I was leveraging my power
Mhm.
against my own party in order to force them to do the right thing for Protect Children's Innocence Act. At the same time, I was leveraging my power
Mhm.
with my name on a discharge petition to force a bill out
Mhm.
that would expose all the elite pedophiles who had raped
Mhm.
women when they were teenagers
Mhm.
and had told me their stories.
Mhm.
We got to get
Physically
Marjorie in
shaking.
line. She, they were like, I
Yes.
bet you were,
Oh,
yeah.
wow. Yeah.
So what was happening to me in that moment was the most interesting thing. I was leveraging all my power.
Mhm.
You have to understand that was all my power I had.
Mhm.
All of my power to force them to vote to protect kids, and
Mhm.
all the power I had against the president that I fought for and got elected.
Wow.
And had over
Spent
700 death
$1
threats
for.
protecting. Yeah.
Traveled the country for, gave up all of my time with my own children and my
Mhm.
family and my friends, gave up so much, even my own reputation to a certain extent, to help him get elected.
Mhm.
I was fighting him
Mhm.
to get the information released on the most evil people in
Mhm.
the world.
And he loved you like nobody else. I mean, I think Brian was even threatened. Hey, Brian, don't mess with Marjorie. Not threatened, but don't break her heart. Don't do because I think the family loved you. Everybody loved you until they didn't.
Until he called me a traitor.
Mhm.
That's why he called me a traitor. It wasn't a
Marjorie
traitor.
Taylor Greene is actually a badge of honor. It's a
When it
it's a
comes
sick
to-
nickname, but it's a badge
because
of honor
what it's
in a
about.
way. Mhm.
He called me that
Because you're not a traitor.
not
You're the
to the
last
country.
thing. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I was a traitor to him.
Mhm.
So let's define what that is. So back to I was leveraging all the power that God gave me.
Mhm.
Really, I
Right.
won an election I should have never won
Mhm.
against 8 men. I was a novice. I was brand new. I was even a carpetbagger in my
Mhm.
district.
Mhm.
I moved in that district to run for Congress.
Mhm.
I should have never won, but
Mhm.
I won. Then I was given power. That power is given through God. All seats of power are given through God.
Right.
And you have to know that and recognize it when you're given that power,
Mhm.
because with it comes
Mhm.
angels. You
Mhm.
are supported, you are protected,
Mhm.
and your power is protected through
Mhm.
God. That's what I had. And I leveraged it all in this last year of Congress. And what did that feel like? I'm using all my power, but I felt like I had no control.
Mhm.
I had no control. And is actually the most interesting thing is it made me feel weaker than I've ever felt in my life.
Mhm.
I was pushing all my power to force what needed to be done, but I
Mm.
felt at the weakest I had ever felt in my life.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I knew I had no control. And that's when something most interesting is I realized it's really up to God. It's not me. I'm leveraging all my power, but I'm not forcing this. God is going to make it happen. And that's why on my last day in Congress, my very last vote, I'm not kidding, it was the last vote of the evening.
Mm-hmm.
Protect Children's Innocence passed the House
Mm-hmm.
after 4 Republicans voted no.
Mm-hmm.
4 Republicans voted no, which would have tanked my bill
Mm-hmm.
completely
Mm-hmm.
because we had such a narrow majority. We only had 2 vote majority. 4 Republicans voted no, but miraculously, 3 Democrats voted yes
Mm-hmm.
on an issue
Mm-hmm.
that they had fought.
Mm-hmm.
God made that happen.
Mm-hmm. It's the timing of that, and you're so right, because there's a lot of things that happen, by the grace of God. But one of the things I go back to is like when people, I'm nobody, well, I'm not nobody, I'm a pastor and a spiritual leader in McKinney with a lot of people, but people knew I have a friendship with you, and so they would ask me questions, and all this, and like, why don't Margie do this? And I said, Marjorie will not violate her conscience. And God may be releasing her from Congress, is what I would say.
Mm.
God may be
That's
releasing her.
interesting.
I said that
Mhm.
because like I said, she's not playing a long game right now.
No.
And usually when you quit playing a long game, it's because you're willing to die on the hill. But
Mhm.
the reason some people won't die on the hill is because they want to play the long game.
That's right.
But usually when you stop playing the long game politically and do what's right, regardless of what it costs, it's the number one sign that you're being released from something and called to something else.
That's interesting.
Well, what's also interesting is that Trump tried to stop all your future endeavors by shaming you and
Yeah.
how bad you'd lose the election in Georgia and all these things. And I think there's a lot of advisors around you that would agree that you're getting positioned to make a difference. And I don't know what that's for, but you're going to be out of the tenacity of the swamp
Mhm.
and in a place where when you're trusted with power, God promotes. I'm not saying I'm not claiming prophetically God's going to promote you, but usually when God releases you from somewhere with that kind of a situation, it's almost always because a promotion's coming, Marjorie.
It's interesting.
Yeah. Well, Pastor Zach, I heard you take a breath of about 6 or 8 times, and
Just breathing.
no,
No, I was just thinking because, it's thank you for sharing your story.
Mhm.
It's such an interesting perspective. And I think maybe people could hear it and think, oh, well, that's applicable in Congress and in these high seats of power. But my experience has been, I was going to make a joke to say that we have representatives of church and state here at this table today. And you guys and Miss Green and myself from middle school student council, it's my governmental
I was
experience.
president of my fraternity.
Okay, well, I was
I was
a
vice
powerful
president
table.
in my high school class, and we've never had a reunion. And I found out in year 25 that I'm responsible for
Yeah,
those
that's on you.
reunions.
That's on
Yeah.
you.
Sorry, class.
You guys could have all still been friends. But,
Yeah.
I was just thinking about, in the church, how I've experienced what I felt like was a righteous fight, and for what I felt like would please the Lord. Like it's just
Mhm.
so we talk a lot about even strength finders. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but belief is, according to that test, my number one strength. And so to do
I think
something
Marjorie's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
Believe,
to do
believe.
something that violates the conscience, really belief is like if you believe in something, you will give everything to fight for it.
Mhm.
But the downside of it is when you lose that sense of belief in something, all motivation goes. It's like, I'm done. You know
I
what?
no longer believe in this. Yeah.
Yeah. And that I think is universally applicable.
Yeah.
I think that we all experience moments like that.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about a person who has $500 billion and they get down to they go broke, or a person who has $100 and they go broke. The experience of that is the same.
Yeah.
It's so things that you've experienced are applicable to us because there's a fight that the Lord has given to all of us to
Mhm.
take our stand,
Mhm.
to be a watchman on the wall, and to not back down whenever we are faced with evil.
Mhm.
Darkness has need to fear the light, but light doesn't need to fear the darkness. And I think though, that's awesome for me to say that. But I think about the idealistic viewpoint of me as, a young man. I was raised by my grandparents because my mom passed away, my dad left, and so my grandparents took me in, and I grew up as essentially an only child with my grandparents in Stonewall, Louisiana. And I was outside playing most of the time because my grandpa was at work and I was just by myself. So I had these, idealistic pictures of what it would look like, reading fantasy novels and like being the hero of the story and going after it, and carving little swords out of wood and like saving the damsel in distress and all these things. And now I'm 34 and have 5 children and a wife. And there are sometimes I think the fight the Lord's asked me to take, I can create these idealistic, kind of perspectives of it and how it's all going to be beautiful and,
Mhm. Mhm.
we're on a linear path towards good. And I think
Mhm.
we are. But there are experiences like when you mentioned after that vote and you're sitting there feeling the weight of evil around
Mhm.
and looking at the juxtaposition of that with "In God We Trust" on the wall
Mm.
and questioning like, what are we doing? Like
Mhm.
what's happening?
Mhm.
Lord, I know that you're working this out for good, but right now it feels really dark and
Mhm.
I don't know what to do. I've experienced that in my own life and it's led me towards like, I don't know if you've experienced this too or if you'd feel comfortable to share, but like anxiety, a lot of anxiety, like this existential crisis of like, whoa. And the only thing that has rooted me in that feeling of whether it's in the church, seeing pastors fail, seeing pastors create systems that don't serve people, but actually, you
Serve
know,
themselves.
serve themselves and
Mhm.
take from the people that they're called to be shepherds spiritually, but they abuse and they take, they don't give, they don't represent God's heart. They don't represent good. They
Mhm.
actually are wolf in sheep's clothing.
Mhm.
And how disillusioned I've been by
Mhm.
experiencing that, seeing that, and living that out. I've had my own moment of sitting in my car and just looking out the windshield and going, what are we doing? Like
Mhm.
feeling in God we trust. I know that's true,
Mhm.
but the weight of evil all
Mhm.
around and
Mhm.
and like, Lord, when is justice coming,
Mhm.
and the only thing that grounds me is God's word, the
Mhm.
scripture. And I
Yeah.
thought about even recently in Deuteronomy chapter 33,
Mhm.
this scripture has I'll just quote 2 scriptures really quick, one from Deuteronomy, one from Genesis. But Deuteronomy 33:26 says, "There is none like God." This helps ground me to
Mhm.
understand that
Mhm.
truth that you mentioned earlier, that beyond all of our semblance of control
Mhm.
or even seeing behind the curtain, that's
Mhm.
one of the most disillusioning things that can happen,
Yeah.
especially if even in our world of like, again, on a lesser scale of like the pastoral move, it's like
Mhm.
people have an idea of what it's like. And man, people are on it. Everything's good and things are
Why don't they just do that? Why don't they
yeah.
just do that? They
Well,
have
they
no
didn't take
idea.
account the corrupt soul
Yeah.
of a human heart that ultimately is
And the power of
carnal.
fear.
Oh,
The
Mhm.
power of fear.
Fear
And
is
but
powerful.
experiencing that as a person of strong belief,
Mhm.
experiencing the disillusionment and also like taking wounds through that fight, like that's real.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Um, the weight and the cost of
Mhm.
fighting that fight. But every day we get back up and in our own way,
Yeah.
and our at our own post, we say, Lord, I'll fight the fight you've asked me to fight again. I'm not gonna,
Mhm.
as long as there's breath in my lungs, I'm gonna keep on fighting. I'm not gonna let evil
Mhm.
intimidate me into quitting. I'm
Mhm.
going to say the light wins over the darkness every
Mhm.
time. And no matter how dark the night gets, the dawn is coming.
yeah.
Mhm.
Morning is coming.
Yeah, let's go.
And the hope that I have when I feel these existential crises of, Lord, oh, all these people that I want to trust in and look to a man,
Mhm.
they don't deserve that trust. So
Mhm.
who does?
Mhm.
Only God does. So
Yes.
I can only put that full trust in him. And scripture tells us there is none like God, O Jeshurun, who rides through the heavens to your help. I think about you sitting in the house that day and you're just feeling that hopeless helplessness.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I just this is true over you then, it's true over you today. He
Mhm.
rides through the heavens to your help, through the skies in his majesty. The eternal God is your dwelling place,
Mm.
and underneath are the everlasting arms.
Come on.
Mm.
That for me has made me feel so grounded when I have felt, you mentioned earlier, the world upside down. I've felt that in my experience as just a normal dude living in Texas. I'm
Mhm.
like, whoa, things feel out of whack. But
Mhm.
the groundedness is underneath
Mhm.
are the everlasting arms.
Mhm.
And really quickly, Genesis.
Mhm.
This is a story of Abraham and Abram and Sarai. She's barren. She hasn't had a son or any children for Abram or for them. And she says, "Take my servant Hagar." And so, Abram sleeps with Hagar. She conceives and names him Ishmael. Well, then the story kind of shifts because Sarai is angry with Hagar then and sends her away.
Mhm.
She lifts up this cry. Um, to the Lord whenever she's sent away. But right whenever the angel of the Lord comes to her, she responds. This is Hagar, who has, been thrust into a situation she has no control over.
Right.
She's done what she was asked, and now she's being punished and sent away. And she says to the Lord, she recognizes, so she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her, "You are a God of seeing." And then later, God responds to Abram and says, "I am God Almighty, El Shaddai." But I take hope in these two things. Number one, underneath are the everlasting arms. Beyond whatever semblance of control or whatever semblance of trust in governmental structures or in specific people, we are wired to want to trust in a person, but we are destined to trust in God.
Yeah.
That's what we're made for. And so we have to unattach ourselves from these earthly attachments to people that are not deserving of our trust and reattach them. That's the act of worship. That's the act of our own will and our own volition. I remove myself from these attachments and I attach myself to the one who made me. God Almighty will be my judge. I will stand before him and make an account of every decision that I did in my life. He's
That's
the God who
basically
sees.
what I did.
Yeah.
Right.
There's
No,
I have a lot of joy over that. And that when she said, God, you're seeing, there's a name in the Hebrew, Jehovah Ra'ah is the name of God there, that he's our seer, but it's the same word for shepherd. When David says the Lord is my shepherd, he's describing the Lord who sees, who oversees. And so no matter who's in government, God's the one who oversees. And I do believe that he oversees you. Now, this is something fascinating. I want to like kind of transition into a landing place here with you and with us. Somebody like out of all days today at 6:29 p.m. yesterday, but about 3 a.m. this morning, I read this email and it was like a dream. And like this person has never sent me an email. She sent it to my wife and me, but it was a dream that she had. And there's significance to this. And so in the dream, she said that she was standing in the lobby and there was hundreds of people around, and she was holding a plate that had like some bread on it and some cheese and fruit or whatever on it. And she just somebody asked her what she was doing. She said, "I got to get this to Pastor Jeff." And so that's interesting that somebody is trying to get bread to me. That's who feeds people bread. So that's a whole meaning. But then her husband came up to her in the dream and said that, "Hey, come on, we won't have time for that. We got to go. There's a storm coming." And then she looked out the window and saw like dark clouds coming and a tornado she saw.
Wow.
And then so she and her husband were in a covering room being covered from the storm. And he said, "Why do you still have that?" She goes, "I've got to give it to Pastor Jeff." And then she woke up. And so on this day, there's reasons why I wouldn't have brought you to a podcast, because I wouldn't want to invite any unnecessary storms on Anchor Church or myself and all those kinds of stuff. No, for real, serious.
Yes, of course.
Because
not.
there was a I mean some of the first times where I met you, you have never not been in the eye of the storm.
That's true. Yep, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, because you're fighting hell. And because you're fighting things that are really, really deep and dark. And if anybody can get rejected by a party, you were fighting something. You touched something that everybody's got their eye on right now. I just sense like in a like a prophetic kind of timing kind of way. Like I know what's happened at Anchor. I know my relationship with your family. I know how close you are to the front lines of the top wars in this country. I know how deeply involved, Brian, you've even been of put on a suit, man. I mean, you've spoken the truth in the White House in ways that have just
That was epic.
put on a suit. Why don't you have a suit? But you've flown, in Air Force. Well, you guys have done, and I remember, Brian, when you were in the Hammer around 2019 with some small little media company in wherever, Waco, Texas, and you messaged me, "Hey, they're about to fire me," and they did that day. And then I think I've got a relationship with Charlie Kirk coming up, and I'm going to go be this and this and this, and God just opened up door after door after door after door to the point where you're flying in Air Force One, or you're going to different places around the world. You're because of this, because of you two. You've been on the front lines of some of the most epic leadership in America, and then you fought an issue, and the people you were fighting for turned on you. And I want to let you know I'm sorry that happened to you.
Oh, it's okay.
I'm not apologizing.
Yeah.
You got thicker skin than I do, so I'm just letting you know you don't need that. But I want to encourage you. Like I just really sense this from my own heart. I'm not saying it's prophetic or anything, but I really just sense for you that it's not time to quit. And I believe you know that. And I believe that you know that there's a real transition coming. And I don't know what's coming up in the future, but I want to hear your heart on kind of what's happening with you and how you've received this and what's given you strength through this transition.
Well, I think it's important to recognize it's not quitting.
Right.
It's refusing to be treated the way I was being treated, but also upholding my own integrity.
Hmm.
You can't. The way I felt is
I call it a calling. I remember somebody telling, a friend of mine, "Hey, listen, this is a notebook for quitters. You sure you want to quit?" And he said, "You need a new notebook, and that one
yeah.
needs to say called.
No,
Like I'm being
it's
called out. Like God's calling you out of
right.
this because it's wrong for you to keep doing." Right.
Absolutely. It would be wrong for me to have stayed in and gotten in line,
Hmm.
which is what they wanted me to do, and continued to have given my support. My support is means something.
Hmm.
To given my sincere support when I know they were fighting, or the president himself was fighting to stop the release of the Epstein files, and only signed it because we forced him to.
Hmm.
And it would have been wrong for me to have stayed in there after he called me a traitor. And the man does not apologize.
Hmm.
And that would have been completely wrong
Hmm.
to allow myself to have been treated that way
Hmm.
after all that I had given.
Hmm.
And the reason why I had to leave is because there needs to be a transition.
Hmm.
You see, I learned after 5 years is it's a completely broken system and it cannot be fixed.
Hmm.
And voting is not going to fix it,
Hmm.
because you can keep voting and guess what? Everybody pretty much stays in
Yeah,
there.
the swamp
Hmm.
is the swamp.
It does not change.
Hmm.
And unless every single member of Congress and senator loses and you put all new people in there, that's maybe you have a chance to change it.
Hmm.
But there's still a whole underlying component there, which is it's the political industrial complex, I
Mhm.
call it.
Hmm.
And it's based on the campaigns, the consultants that always make money, win or lose. Then you've got, once everyone gets elected, you've got the whole structure of the lobbyists and the industries and the big donors who always get what they want while
Hmm.
the people get nothing. That is a system that cannot be changed. And if you're a sincere believer, you cannot continue to be a part of that,
Hmm.
because it's a system that's serving evil. You
So are you
can't.
saying our only hope is God?
Our only hope is God, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
And our hope is in God. And
Hmm.
that's the message that I would like to get across to everyone. Most importantly, a lot of people right now are devastated.
Hmm.
There's people that can't even function because of what they've read in the Epstein files.
Hmm.
There are people that are so upset and hopeless for the future that they are just buried in anxiety and depression, and
And the worst part's not even revealed.
they can't even see out of their phones to look around them and realize there's a whole day happening.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think that is something that people need to understand, is like I felt in the
Mhm.
House of Representatives when
Mhm.
a bill passed the floor to kill babies up until the day of birth. And I was like, I'm sitting in the pits of hell right now,
Mhm.
but it still said on the wall, "In God we
Mhm.
trust."
So I thought about this in closing. I thought about trusting God with justice. That was one of the hardest things for David because there was so much justice he wanted to happen, and there's so much justice that we want. And I remember this conversation with my dad when my mom died. My mom died. My dad and I were, in the bedroom with her and her final breath, and we both carried her out to the car and came back in. And my dad fell into my arms. I just held him like at 2 a.m. We both were crying, and I think I was about 43 or so, and Dad was 65 or 66, something like that. And then the next day, I asked him a few questions, and he told me more than I ever wanted to know. I mean, would you agree? Would y'all agree that there's some things that you like you can be vulnerable with your kids, but there's just some things that are not going to benefit them at all. It's like there's some things that happen in your mind your spouse doesn't need to know. Like you don't. If we would all be like so like tormented if we knew our spouse's every thought. I mean,
Mhm.
it's like we like no, my always perfect thoughts. No, they don't. Like there's
Right.
And so there's a point in this with the Epstein files, especially because I remember like with the whole all of us back when the Podesta emails went out in 20 whatever, like 15 or 14, whenever that was,
And you learned
15.
about Little Red
Yeah,
Shoes
so we're
and
seeing so much.
paintings.
We're like,
Yes.
oh man, like then we start thinking justice is going to happen. Injustice has still not happened in like 12 years. So we're like, what's real? And there's so much that God's like, the world cannot handle what's happened behind closed doors on this earth. And I thought, there's a need for the Epstein files to be released because it's the next form of justice we want. We're like, justice, there's all this, but let's back up to like there's so much injustice over the earth, and God's the God of justice. And I just want you to know that the Lord, I believe the Lord used you
Mhm.
for a powerful reason. You made a difference. I don't think of course, I don't think you feel shame for anything, about this, but like, there's no shame in what you did, and there's no shame in how you fought. And you're not a quitter. You're not a traitor. You're very clear about your convictions, and you fought against a hornet's nest that for whatever reason, God Himself may even be covering. I don't know. I don't
No,
know.
I believe
I'm still
justice.
waiting on. I'm still waiting on to know what Hillary Clinton bleach bit and all the. There's
Right.
so much.
Did we land on the moon?
And did we?
No.
There's so much stuff that we're
Brian would
all.
like to join for that podcast.
I like want another lifetime just to watch the movies after everybody finds out what happened in the mid 1900s. I'm like, I mean, get about 80 more years so I can find out the truth. But heaven is that. Like, there's.
But I think that's God tells us.
Yeah.
Vengeance is mine, declares the Lord.
Yeah.
And it's putting our all of our anger and saying, I'm so mad about this. I'm so upset over this. I'm so depressed over this. I'm so outraged over this. We have to, in our faith in God and who He is, put all of that at His feet. That's really what it's all about. And I think that was the hardest lesson I had to learn in Congress.
That's what stepping
Surrender.
away.
I
well,
went in like, I'm going to do it all.
Yeah.
And then I found out I can't do anything. It's Him who does it.
And I hope that doesn't discourage anybody, because it does feel hopeless in many ways. And I agree with a lot of what you said with the institutional structures that are in place and the things that are just would have to come crumbling down. But there are stories in the Bible of walls getting torn down and crumbling down when people marched, and with a shout tying that back in. But we've talked about bread. Many of the things that I think that you've articulated are idols people have in their lives that they worship at. And I want to read this scripture, and I don't know, Marjorie, if this is specifically for you. At first, I thought it was, but I've been reading it like the last 10 minutes, and the more we kind of talk, and I just feel like this is for almost the country, or maybe some of your former colleagues even. And so I want to just read this. And so in verse 19, Isaiah 30, it says, "O people of Zion, you who live in Jerusalem, which was the seat of power and the seat of influence, you will weep no more. How gracious He will be when you cry for help. As soon as He hears, He will answer you. Although the Lord gives you bread of adversity and the water of affliction, your teachers will be hidden no more. With your own eyes you will see them. Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, 'This is the way, walk in it.' Then you will defile your idols, those things that you worship, those things you think are so important. You surrender your whole character and belief for. You'll surrender your idols overlaid with gold and silver. You will throw them away like a minstrel cloth and say to them, 'Away with you.'" And Marjorie, I just think that's a word for many members that are serving our government right now, that if they would cry out to God for help, despite the bread of adversity and the water of affliction that that you've articulated and described to us today, many people are in the same boat, and they have surrendered and are knelt down to the altar of an idol of influence, of power, of money, of their portfolio, or whatever idol that they're worshiping. That if they will trust in God to cry out to Him, that their ears will hear a voice behind them to guide them in the way everlasting. And and God himself will defile those things and make
Mhm.
them shameful and unattractive and cast them away.
Mhm.
And I think that's hopeful.
Mhm.
And I think um
Mhm.
I just am speaking that over you, over your what you went through,
Mhm.
and then also to our leaders in the country, in seats of power in the county, in the city, in the state, in the federal government, that the Lord is available and I believe is longing to hear from you as
Mhm.
you sit in those seats with your voter card, that
Mm.
he is available. And I think
Mhm.
many people, their ears are so
Mhm.
clogged
Mhm.
because of the swamp, because of
Mhm.
the dark money, because of all those things. So my prayer is that their ears are opened
Mm.
and God is there and will redeem and will defile all that looks so nice,
Mhm.
covered in silver and
Mhm.
gold.
Well, well, Marjorie, I want to close with this question. What do you feel like you want people to know in regards to where you are, what you're doing, what the narrative that's unfolding in this election time and future? What do you feel like you really want people to know that maybe we didn't say yet?
Um, Most important thing I think people should know is where they do have the most power is local government.
Hmm.
And I there's a lot of people that I'm going to run for Congress. No, run for school board or city council
Hmm.
or your county commissioner. If people put all of their passion and all of their interest in government in their local government,
Mm-hmm.
that's where big changes
Yeah,
can be
you
made.
saw that during
Mm-hmm.
COVID and a lot of
Yes.
stuff. Yeah.
Yes, and then that's where if you're a passionate mom or dad, or your kids are grown and you're trying to make an impact for your local community, for your grandchildren, if you put all your time and effort and anger
Mm-hmm.
and your beliefs in your local government, that's where you can really make a difference. And you want to know why that's important? That's where your trash gets picked up.
Yeah.
That's where your roads are paved.
School.
That's where your children are educated. That's really where your life is impacted.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the things that happen at the federal government, even though that's all you see 24/7 on TV, on Fox News or
Mhm.
CNN or whatever you watch, that is not impacting your life like your local government is.
Mm.
So I really want to leave people with a lot of encouragement of you can make a difference.
What would Marjorie be like on a school board? That's what what would she be like on a soccer committee?
Done all that. I raised 3 children. I did all that stuff. But I think for me personally, God has brought me out and is giving me a period of rest that is
Mhm.
much needed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I am taking it. And my family deserves my time.
Mhm.
Brian deserves my time. My mother deserves my time,
Mhm.
and that's very important. And I think that's something else people need to remember is it's those very close personal
Mhm.
relationships,
Mhm.
our spouses, our children, our
Mhm.
very tight, close friends, our
Mhm.
siblings, aunts, uncles. We have to nurture those
Mhm.
and they get lost
Mhm.
sometimes. And so that's primarily what I'm doing, as well as nurturing myself,
Mhm.
which that's a good thing too. You have to make sure you're strong and rested
I've seen some
Is it
CrossFit
hey,
videos.
yeah, well, across the hey, listen, so I gotta close with this. So I
Okay.
I I remember there was one of the Sundays that you guys were here at Anchor, and somewhere in the sermon, I said, "If you like it, you better put a ring on it," or something like that in the sermon. And I've noticed your left hand is different than the last time I saw you. So catch
Rock.
us up with that.
Congrats.
What's happening? That ain't no little bitty rock. I
No.
think, yeah.
Poor Brian, he could have bought himself a car.
Come on, Brian. Like we actually had a lot of text messages between Brian and Brad and me, and getting that done. So
Well, good job,
we knew that was
guys. Thank
happening.
you. I appreciate
We
it.
know that was happening. But catch us up on that. How's that going?
It's going really well. We
Mhm.
haven't set a date, not a public plan, because we probably wouldn't want to make that a public plan.
Well, you got a pastor, and we'll
Yes,
do it on
we
a
do.
beach somewhere fun away. And but I'm kidding. But anyway, I love you very much. I want to pray for you and pray for our country. God, I'm just so thankful for this time with you and time with Marjorie. Thank you for what you've done in her heart and in her life. And I pray that you deepen her heart for you, that you protect her, God, from all the accusers, and protect her, God, from all. There's so much. If I just Google, I just see so much attack on her. And you used her, and you're still using her, and you're going to use her. And I thank you, God, for what you've done in all this in the world. And you're opening up opportunities right now in this era of time for truth tellers to speak up. And I thank you for Charlie Kirk, and I thank you for so many others that just refuse to compromise. And I ask you for more of that, and that you cause righteousness to reign on the earth, and that you raise up truth and justice here on earth, and that we represent you. And I pray for healing and restoration, even during this African American History Month, like during this time, that you heal the division in our country, that you heal the division in race and in gender and all the different confusing forces and fronts, that you heal our land, that you heal political parties, that you heal leaders, and that you make yourself the number one name on the earth in the hearts of people, and that many people turn to you. And I pray for a great movement to happen in our generation, in our lifetime. We need you, God, and we trust you. We love you in Jesus' name. Amen and amen. Well, thank you guys for tuning in today, and we'll be back next week. Look forward to seeing you at Anchor this Sunday, and God bless you guys. Have a great day.